This morning I want to introduce you to the one word in the English language that every time I hear it makes me cringe. How about you? It is a word that has made us so crazy in this culture that a lot of what we do revolves around trying to do that. Now for me it started, oh my goodness, I think I was first grade. Actually, the very first time I heard a teacher say, "Oh, I had your brother last year, and he was so smart. He made all A's, and you know what? He is really, really quiet." Just tore me up. I went home. I told my mother, "I can't go to this place. I don't love this school. I have 12 more years of it, and I'm not going to be able to do it." And from there on, it just kind of went and went with me. And it didn't get any easier because, truthfully, that craziness in my head led me to, quite frankly, anorexia. And the first time I withheld food from myself, I was in first grade. So I had this lifetime of trying to figure out how to be perfect, how to make great grades, how to do everything just right. How to kind of live in a black and white, kind of right and wrong kind of world and always be on the right side. And you know what? I know I'm not the only one. I know there's lots of you out there. In fact, every one of you probably have that little thing that over the years has stuck with you and you've had to work on and try to forget or try to cover up, but that you still struggle with every day. Just like I struggle with that word, perfection. Every day. The fact is that we have a whole lot of baggage attached to this word as a culture. We really do. And we don't even just expect it of ourselves. We expect it of our children. We expect it of other people. We especially expect it of people who we don't know. I know the first time that one of my children, I have a son who just turned 31, and he brought home a bee. Now, a bee is really good, right? A bee is really good, but he brought it home, and I went, "Oh, that's great." But the look on my face, he said, "You don't think it's great, do you?" I said, "Yes, baby, I really do." And really, it just matters to me if you tried really hard and if you loved what you were doing. Well, when my second son, 10 years later, not quite 10 years later, 7 years later, went to school in the first grade, my oldest son said to me, "Now, when he brings home a bee, don't do that thing you did with your face." And I tried not to, but I think I probably did. But the point is that this is a word that just drives us crazy, makes us nuts, can even make us sick. It makes us treat others badly. It makes us treat ourselves badly. It makes us look at other people with hate. I mean, it is just a crazy word. And did you realize that get out your pew Bibles for a minute. Look this thing up. I don't hear any pew Bibles coming out. This is my mother face. Get your pew Bibles up. But Jesus had already said a whole lot of hard things. It's Matthew 5, if you don't remember. Verse 38. Jesus said, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But don't resist the evildoer. If anyone strikes you on the right side, turn the other cheek also. If anyone wants you to take off your coat, give them your cloak as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go for the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you. You've heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. God makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good and send rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For if you love only those who love you, then really what are you doing? If you greet only your brothers, what are you doing? Be perfect, Jesus says. Be perfect. I mean, how hard is that? Knowing what we know about how our culture feels about that word and all the struggles that we have trying to achieve that word. How hard is that? And if you think it's hard for us, what about the people that Jesus was talking to? I mean, they were under everybody's thumb. This was his Sermon on the Mount. So he was sitting out on the mountain, and everyone that is sick has come to him because they need to be healed. And his disciples are there, and he starts to speak. And he is looking out across a sea of people. And they are poor, and they are hungry. They have profound things that they cannot ever have. The Romans will kill them. They tax them unbelievably. Their own church leaders, their temple leaders, make them feel as if they don't belong. Women back in that time, if you know anything about, actually in times past, for a lot of the time, women were more like, they were possessions. So women had it hard. It was just a time when there was so little hope. And Jesus had thrown that word at them also. Jesus had said, you can't hate the Romans. You know, you got to pray for the Romans. You got to pray for those people who take all your money. You got to pray for those people who take the food from your children. You can't hate. You got to be perfect. Perfect. I mean, why would Jesus say that word to them when he knew how hard that would be, and everything else in their life was hard as well? Well, there's a little something about this word perfect. You know the translation thing? I think I've talked to you about that before. Translation of the Bible is kind of an art. And what you read is someone who read the Bible and read it in Greek or in Hebrew and then kind of wrote down what it meant to them. And the translation we use, you know, we pick out the one or the one that we think is the best, or the one that we know, trust the person who translated it. But in Greek, this word perfect doesn't mean what we have made it mean in our culture. It doesn't mean, that you have to be totally blameless or that you have to always be in the right. Actually, it means that you're moving toward what you're supposed to be. That you're growing toward God. It's about being sincere. It's about being loving. It's about being kind. Because what is God anyway? What is the nature of God? And who can we look to figure out who God is? And I think the best way to figure out who God is to look at what Jesus did, especially when Jesus was on this earth doing the things that we might be doing. And what are those things that Jesus did? Jesus loved people unconditionally. Jesus healed everyone, especially in this Gospel of Matthew. I mean, the reason all these people have come to see him is that Matthew writes he was walking around the countryside healing every single person. So he made everybody well. He gave them hope. He fed them. He would teach them. He would tell them, this is what you've always heard about the law, but this is what God really wants. And when God really wants something, it usually means that you are loved. He told them not to be afraid. He told them to, resist nonviolently, to stand there, to be who they were. He told them they counted. So, if we're going to be perfect, like God in heaven is perfect, I think that means for us that we love unconditionally, that we feed people, that we never ever tell anybody they don't count, that we don't require of people that they get every single thing right in their lives just so they can measure up to our standards. I think it doesn't matter so much if people are right and wrong. I think it matters that we love them. It matters that we love them because that's what Jesus did. And I believe that's what God meant for us to do. Or else Jesus wouldn't have been doing that when he was here. So the next time you think about this word perfect, this thing that we have in our culture that we kind of throw at each other sometimes. The next time you feel like you need to lose a few pounds, and I am talking to myself, and the next time that you feel as if your hair should be different and you want to make it look totally different than it is on you, the next time you feel like you have to do a little more at your job and you have to stay a few more hours, or the next time that you look at your children and think, I need to sign them up for one more thing to do so they will be able to do all of the things their friends are doing. The next time you are at, here's a good one, at one of your kids' ball games, and they have just made the worst play ever. In fact, they have kicked it out of bounds. In fact, they have kicked it in the goal of the other team. The next time you are at a place like that and you think of this word perfect, I want you to remember that being perfect, like your Father in heaven is perfect, being perfect like God, means that you get to be loved and they get to be loved. And that everybody counts. Everybody. I love poetry, and I have a favorite poet. Her name is Mary Oliver. And she has the greatest poem. I have actually known it for years. In fact, I had it written on a little card I carried in my purse for a very long time because I needed to hear it every day. It's called Wild Geese. And if you were a poetry person, I would encourage you to go online and look at that. But the first few lines go like this. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk across the desert on your knees for 100 miles repenting. You only have to let yourself love. You only have to let yourself love. And if you can do that, you will be perfect. I promise. Thanks be to God. Amen.